morning. You're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. I'm Mubarakah Ibrahim, and this is Mornings with Mubarakah. We are broadcasting live from downtown New Haven, and we're streaming live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org. And if you are on the Facebook, then you know that we are also streaming live both on Fit Muslimah Facebook page as well as New Haven Independent Facebook page. So you can go to facebook.com/New Haven Independent. If you are listening in your car or on TuneIn and you're getting ready to go sit in front of your computer and you're like, hey, I want to see these lovely people's faces. So it is a wonderful Wednesday morning, and you know that because this is your Wednesday morning voice. We still have overcast in New Haven, and it's sort of kind of a yucky kind of day, but I am smiling because smiles make everything better. Bring your own sunshine, you know. Bring your own sunshine. So today we are talking about the environment with Miss Marian Evans. Thank you very much for joining me.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I am going to tell you a little bit about Marian, Marian Evans is an assistant professor at Southern Connecticut State University in the Department of Public Health. She's a board member of the Greater New Haven Green Fund, which we'll be talking about today in some really interesting events coming up. And she teaches graduate level environmental health at Southern Connecticut State University, as well as undergraduate women's health in a range of public health classes. Yes, you were my women's health professor.
I was.
And she was awarded the Outstanding Faculty Member by the SCSU Multicultural Affairs Office in 2018. Congratulations.
Thank you.
She is an MD trained in OBGYN and anesthesia, has a master's in public health and certified clinical research associate. She currently sits on the New Haven Green Fund because of her interest in reproductive and women's health and the environment. That is a mouthful, and I had to tell her to only give me 5 sentences. We have an expert among us, ladies and gentlemen, an expert among us. Well, thank you very much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Awesome.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. This is a really fascinating topic. 2 things that are my personal interests, which is the environment. I just fussed at my husband this morning for putting our compost outside. Okay. And the animals got to it.
Okay.
So we try to reduce our environmental footprint.
Yeah.
In addition to that, you know, everybody knows that I'm very passionate about women's health, every aspect of women's health. So those are 2 things that we have in common.
Yes.
So I want to talk to you a little bit about, let's start off with your particular interest about women's health and the environment. Where does that start? So I know you are an OBGYN by training and by practice years ago. Mm-hmm. And so where does that, a lot of times with medical professionals, the environment seems to be down on the list as to why it's kind of like, what are you doing? What is your body doing? When did that expansion of understanding that the environment actually impacts women's health kind of came to you?
So I would say that part of my interest in the environment and sort of that piece of knowledge and awareness expanded when I got more involved in public health. And I saw that there was an intersection between not only an intersection between the environment and some of the chemical things that we have in our environment or that we pollute in our environment, that many times in medicine, we just don't know enough. There's built-in research now about these types of chemicals and things like that. I must say that California is one of the states that leads the way in some of these chemicals and things like that harm everyone's health. But looking at certain sort of estrogen-like chemicals that we produce in industry that we know now have a effect of some sort. Things like that we've never thought about before, like jet fuel. Like when you get in a plane, that jet fuel goes somewhere as it's being expended. And now we know that there are byproducts from jet fuel that affect the thyroid gland, and might have an effect on thyroid cancer. This is just one example. And it's just a different way of thinking about things as you learn that I had never thought about before. And I must say that as I delved more into my public health background, that is where I said, there is an intersection here between not only overall sort of health, but the environment plays a big role. And as you said, our carbon footprint, looking at the things that we use, not knowing about makeups and perfumes and some things that we just never thought about before as might be affecting our health and things like that. So it all makes sense. It all comes together for me in the intersection between women's health, reproductive health, and some of the environmental sort of toxins.
I was actually reading a few weeks ago that the average woman puts about 150 chemicals on her body before we even walk out the door.
Yes.
When we think about lotions and deodorants,
moisturizers, and makeup, and lipsticks, and all kind of stuff.
Yeah. I was like, wow, that's quite concerning.
Yeah.
That is. And the fact that it's just like so common and we aren't even conscious of.
And we don't think about it. Our skin is an organ. We absorb some of those things. You know, if you pick up a bottle of shampoo and it's got more words that you can't say than it does natural products, that might be a problem. And you're putting all those chemicals on you for your body to absorb. So,
and another thing that was really interesting to me is this idea, or I guess it's been proven by research, for African American women in particular, the link between relaxers and fibroids. Is this like a new knowledge that's coming up, or is it something that's been researched for a while?
So the research continues. It's not quite definitive, not in everybody, because there are some women that have been natural for many, many years or for most of their life without chemical relaxers and things like that still have this problem. So we believe that might be part of it. And this is where in science and research, it gets difficult, right? Because there's so many multifaceted, multi-levels sometimes to one problem that researchers usually take a one silo approach, right? Let's just look at what we can look at. What's the easiest thing to look out to see if there's an association or we can make a correlation. But usually there's many other things that go into something. So the hair products, relaxers and things like that might be a part. Some people may be more sensitive to it, but there's also an environmental and genetic component, we believe. And so research is still out, but like you said, we do know that fibroids is the incidence of fibroids among African American women is one of the highest that we have. So
there's a correlation, but not necessarily causation.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the New Haven Green Fund, let's talk a little bit about that. So
yes, because that's where I'm here today.
So your interest in environment and health led you to the New Haven Green Fund. Tell me a little bit about how that connection was made and what the New Haven Green Fund does.
So initially, I think when I came back to start working in New Haven, I was also a part of the New Haven Environmental Justice Network, which is a small local group. We used to meet on Wall Street here in downtown New Haven. Many people probably haven't heard of it. Chris Schweitzer is still the head of that group. And through my membership in that group, I found out about the Green Fund. And I said, this is interesting that there is a fund. And the history behind the fund is very interesting, that all we do is give out money. And then the first thing that always comes to mind with me being community minded is, do people know about this? That there's money out there that you can get if you have an environmental ideal about making something better and improving, that there is money, small grants that you can get that go on most of the year. And I don't believe enough people know. And I don't believe that enough people of color know about this money that exists. So it is my mission, part of the Green Fund's mission. And this year we took it on to try to increase our outreach to the local community. Okay. So it's called the Greater New Haven Green Fund because we've expanded the towns, but we used to just do like East Haven, West Haven, New Haven, and Woodbridge and Hamden. But now we've expanded it. We've relaxed those rules a little bit so that it's still the greater New Haven, but if you've got a good idea, we will consider other towns in that sort of circle of broadening the circle of what who can participate and where they are. So one of the things I want to tell you about is our mission. So our mission is to promote environmental quality, public health, and equity in our community by providing grants and other incentives to support initiatives that contribute to a more environmentally sustainable future, to reduce air, water, and land pollution. So land pollution, as you mentioned, and I know you've mentioned to me before, you have a son that's interested in sort of this field. Land pollution, as you mentioned before, is when we think about how much plastic do we use? Where does that plastic go? And that's some of the things that we teach about, particularly here in New Haven. Air pollution from the traffic that we both just got through coming into Maine, into downtown New Haven. And if you think about the traffic on 95 that crosses through and runs through New Haven or on the outside skirts of New Haven and most New England towns, we just every day just live in this like pollution that's coming from cars and things like that. And that is why having initiatives that promote more transportation, people-friendly transportation, like bicycling. New Haven's a big town for that. I have to applaud them, like bicycling. But the other things that we don't think about are carpooling. Like we as New England especially, but we as Americans, we love our cars and we don't mind driving in our cars by ourselves to places, right?
Sure.
Right? And that has to do with that whole concept of individualism. But carpooling is another one of those things that we just don't do enough of. And then exploring other less air pollution emitting forms of transportation. Everything from scooters to other things. And like I said, I have to applaud New Haven for being such a proponent of bicycling here.
Yes, we just got the bikes that you can rent.
Yes,
and they are
bike
like
share.
Yes, bike share in all of so many neighborhoods. Some neighborhoods where I was like, oh, they would never put a bike share there. There are bike shares there, and I'm like, this is awesome.
Yes, that is wonderful.
And I hear that people are using it.
Yes.
I know. I actually have kids who use it who are just like, oh, instead of Uber, I'm just gonna go get a bike share.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And for us, this is something relatively new, but in Canada and Europe, bike shares have been going on for a long time. And it is a wonderful improvement. And I hope to see more cities in New England utilize bike share. So yes. So the challenge is that because of where we're situated, because we're old New England, sort of industrial industrial sort of city, that or post-industrial city, that we've got lots of environmental challenges here in greater New Haven. And I won't take time to mention all of them, but I just want to mention some of the things that we do. So for instance, there is a great nonprofit group called Solar Youth that we funded. There is a great school called Common Ground on the edge.
My son graduated from Common Ground.
So that is why he's doing what he's doing.
That
we funded for various. There, New Haven Land Trust, New Haven Farms, the Connecticut Fund for the Environment, Save the Sound. We've done all types of grants. And so I want to talk to you about our two main categories, because there's one I think many people would know. You could be a small group and you don't have to be a 501c, and I think this is what is great about what we do. Right.
You can
just get a fiduciary. Right. And you could go for our first category that we call a micro grant.
Okay.
Our micro grants are from $1 to $1,000. So we give those grants out from September to May every year. So we're in September now. We're opening up our micro grants. If you've got an ideal, maybe it's not even proven, you're a mother's group that
So give me a couple of examples of the things that you fund.
Okay. So the micro grants up to $1,000, we've done things like we have helped the troop school do a bioswale, where it is a certain kind of way that you you form the sidewalk so that the rainwater and storm water, right? So it's like stormwater management. You'll see these in some neighborhoods, these like cutouts in the sidewalk that have gravel and stone and maybe some plants.
Yep.
And you're wondering, oh, that's a little different. It's not like the regular piece of sidewalk. That's what we call a bioswale. And that catches rainwater and storm water so that all that stuff that comes off of the surface of our roads and sidewalks don't go directly into, say, Long Island Sound kind of thing. And as it filters down through the rocks, that's a natural filter, that it's cleaned from some of the bad things that stormwater carries. And it's just a better way. And it's less work that, say, the water treatment plant has to do before they reuse water and things like that, or release water into Long Island Sound kind of thing. So something as simple as a school having a bioswale, or what we call a rock garden. Many people would have said a long time ago, a rock garden, are simple things we can do in our environment and community. So I know Troop School has had one. I think Bernard School has had one. We work with Emerge now, looking at working with Emerge in their youth build.
What's Emerge? That's a new one. I haven't heard of Emerge.
Emerge is a local nonprofit that works with formerly incarcerated people to help them gain the skills that they need to be successful in life. And it is what we call a social entrepreneur. I have to come back on and talk about that. A social entrepreneurship
And
entity.
so what do you fund for them?
These types of things. They do these sort of jobs where these guys learn how to do construction projects and things like that. So this $1 to $1,000 micro grant does things like the Long Wharf came to us and they said, we want to create a bike rack. We know that New Haven is big on biking and bicycles and cycling, and we need a bike rack. Could you fund us up to whatever they asked for in the micro grant category to build a bike rack at the Long Wharf Theater in New Haven? We said, yeah, that's a good idea.
And do you fund just so I know when it comes to grants, there are some people that only fund kind of like the supplies, or do you fund staffing to do things? Do you fund operational?
So many times it just depends on how someone words the grant. We are not opposed to that. For larger, we are not opposed to funding operational to sort of get your foot. If you're an organization, you haven't gotten 501c3 yet, and you're trying to get your footing, EcoWorks. EcoWorks is another organization here in New Haven that we funded that has done everything from fashion, how to take reusable, recyclable materials and reuse them, repurpose them for fashion, and they actually have a store. They went from
Yes, I've seen their store.
EcoWorks. Yes, we funded them. We helped them. We funded them for a while. They started off with a micro grant, and then they went to our other two categories that I want to tell you about: large and small grants. The small grants go up to $3,000. The large grants go up to $10,000, and those only come out once a year. So that will come out in December, and you'll have till sometime in January to put a large or a small grant together to submit to us.
If you are just tuning in, you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5 FM, New Haven's home for community radio. We're streaming live from downtown New Haven and live on TuneIn Radio and newhavenindependent.org. We're also live on Facebook on the New Haven Independent Facebook page, as well as the Fit Muslimah Facebook page. Today, we are talking to Marian Evans, who is a board member for the New Haven Green Fund, an organization that funds grants that help with environmental sustainability. So if you are an individual that has a fiduciary, or if you are a nonprofit, then you can not just apply for a small grant under $1,000, but there's a second category.
There's two second category. Well, two other categories: small grants up to $3,000, and then large grants that go up to $10,000. So, for instance, this year we got a request for approximately $120,000. Okay. We could only fund with the money that we have each year to fund these small grants. We funded about $60,000 worth of grants.
Okay.
And so we had appropriated about 46 to 50, but we actually found some money from other places so that we could actually fund a little bit more this year, kind of thing. And those were, like I said, Solar Youth, the Bradley Street Bike Co-op, New Haven Ecology Project, Data Haven, New Haven Land Trust, Friends of Edgewood Park. So if you've gone to Edgewood Park this summer, you might have seen goats over there on the side.
Really?
That's one of our projects that we have supported.
They put goats in Edgewood Park?
Yes, to eat the bad invasive plants that not supposed to be there.
Really?
Yes. And
Well, that was innovative. I was just getting ready to ask you, like, what are some of the more innovative projects that you funded?
Yes, that is one of the most interesting.
And so, how long were the goats there?
They're still there right now.
Are they?
Yep. So
Okay, I'm gonna have to go by and see. I have not seen them.
Side, whatever that street is, I can't think of the name of the street right now. Where Manjari's is, right there on that side where you can enter the park. From
I know what you're talking about.
The
goats where
right
the tennis court is.
Yes, where the tennis courts are. You'll see a little fenced-in area, and it goes all the way down where the goats are eating away the invasive species.
That's interesting.
That is, I just love that project, and I visited the goats about 2 or 3 times now.
And how long are the goats going to be there?
Probably to the winter at least.
Okay.
Yeah, probably to the winter. I have to look to see how long they said, but it seems like, from what I understand, that the goats are doing a really good job. If you know anything about goats, goats are doing a really good job eating those species. Sometimes they eat the good things and the bad things, but they're eating mostly. You can see what they like and what they don't like also. So it's been really interesting. And I think it's just interesting. Like, you could partner with a school to take the school to see what the goats are doing and learn about the plants and, and about the animals also. So they do have on the fence, when at least the times that I've been there this summer, a little bit about the goats and a little bit about the project. So you could walk around the fence and actually read about the project, kind of thing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. But so these are some of the Bike Month is another thing that we fund. But these are some of the great things that we fund all year. And it's nice to be on a board where you're not raising money all the time. You're actually giving money back to the community. And so that was another thing for me that I actually love about being on this board, is that I'm pushing this outreach. Is a project of the person who's heading this outreach committee on the board, Robert Scheinman. He actually is the executive director for the Whitneyville Cultural Commons.
Okay.
Robert Scheinman and myself and another person on the board are part of this committee. We wanted to do 3 outreach events this year before the end of the year to try to push our message and to reach out to people who like being on the radio show, people who may not hear otherwise if you don't listen to anything else but you, Mubarakah, that about some of our events. The first one that we're excited to talk to you about is September 21st, next Friday, from 5:30 to about 7 at the Whitneyville Cultural Commons. We are featuring, as part of the end of our annual meeting, the Assistant Dean for Community and Inclusion at the Yale School of Forestry and Environmental Studies. His name is Dr. Thomas Easley, and he comes to us via, most recently, North Carolina State, but via also, I guess, originally Alabama. And he's got a great background, and I we can talk about the background. I've been
trying to get him on my show. I thought we would have him today.
Okay.
I think that he's also the first African American assistant dean or dean at the school, which is a small but growing. So my son is in school in Vermont, and he's majoring in environmental studies.
Excellent.
The school has a huge environmental component, and I was actually delightfully surprised to meet several other African American males who are also in different parts of environmental studies. So so one, we're very happy that
Mhm.
he is here. Tell me a little bit about um the the goal or the effort to get more diversity and inclusion in just environmental issue. One of the things that, so this is probably a little sidetrack from what
No,
we were talking
no.
about
Yeah, no,
with the organization, but one of the conversations that I have very often, I shouldn't say very often, that I have had is the lack of interest in recycling, compost, environmental issues among people of color, among people who are financially disadvantaged. What is your what do you think is a way that we actually increase the interest in those populations, and ways that it is as sustainable and
Mhm.
easy, right? So, if you're environmentally challenged, you're not going, or if you're financially challenged, you're not going to go and buy a car that it runs on electricity. So that wouldn't be a practical way. But what are some of the efforts in this field in trying to reach out to those populations?
So as an educator, right? As an educator, I must say that for me, thinking about that question, I would say it's not that we give up on the generation right now, right? But we have this great hope, this great promise for children, right? So having teachers, challenging teachers to teach more innovation, not that they're not doing a great job, but at the middle school, right? So when we talk about building a bioswale at a school, using that as part of their science, right? About to teach about water and the land and environmental issues. That is a great introduction, right? Whether they're part of the actual project or they come in after, like if it's done in the summer when kids are not there, that you incorporate those kinds of things into sort of the curriculum. At the college level, I teach graduate level environmental health, and there's still these adults that tell me, I never thought about it in this way. I do a particular piece around plastic use and where plastic goes and how plastic is harming our fish, the chemicals that make plastic when our fish and our other, sort of this cycle of life, when fish and turtles and things like that eat plastic that's in the ocean, that gets into our food chain. We eat then the fish, and then that gets into us. And there then, so when people say, well, how does it get into our food? How does the byproduct of the jet fuel, how do we get it into our body? You drink water, you eat food, right, to live. And all of these things that we put on our earth, right? You have to show people, and I'm showing adults in the graduate level how the connection to life is, about how some of these environmental toxins are incorporated into our being, kind of thing. If you don't, or if you're not able to even think about the whole picture, sometimes it's good, and that's why I love this organization, to just start where you are. So if you live next to the water treatment plant, if you live next to a recycling plant, if you live next to one of the smokestacks, right, close to the smokestacks that are still giving off, air pollution. When I was the health director in Bridgeport, we did a project with the EPA that found out that sometimes it's hospitals that are the biggest polluters. They were some of the biggest emitters of pollution because there are still hospitals that burn their medical waste.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, because I was just thinking this morning, this was a thought. So this morning I went and got some blood work done at the lab, and I thought about this, the woman, so she pulls the the rubber band thing they put around your arm.
Yes. The tourniquet.
Yes, your tourniquet. So she pulls it out the drawer, because obviously they use a new one for each patient. And I thought to myself, I was like, that's plastic. I wonder if they recycle it. And then when she was done doing my blood work, she just threw it in the trash along with the cotton ball or whatever. And I was like, that's a lot of tourniquets. And I literally thought about that just this morning. That's a lot of plastic going inside the trash. Why don't they recycle that? Like, you could just put that in just like a separate little trash, the way that they put the needles inside of it, So that's really interesting. So I can see how hospitals can be big polluters.
Yes, absolutely. So not only that, think about third world countries where they've gotten this message also that this sort of one use only kind of thing. There's something to be said about what we used to do with sterilizing things that we use over and over in the hospital a long time ago and in medicine. If you think about it, I've gone to countries like India where outside of a hospital that we may visit, there would be a pile of this plastic recyclable medical trash that is just sitting there, because third world countries, in some parts of third world countries, they don't know what to do with this kind of trash other than to burn it or let it sit. So it's a much larger conversation that we can come back to. All right. But what we want to do is we want to first talk about, if you're free on Friday, come out to Hamden, to the Whitneyville Cultural Commons Center to hear Dr. Easley. I think you will enjoy him because he has quite a variety of interests. And so one of the things, not only about where he comes from, North Carolina State, and then from Alabama A&M University, his master's degree is in forest genetics. And I didn't understand what that was. I had never heard of forest genetics. From Iowa State University, and then a doctorate of education from North Carolina State University. But besides that, what I found when I met him this summer was even more interesting is that he's a hip hop artist. And he has his own brand and his own website.
That is very fascinating.
And I think that he'll as far as what his job is for community, Dean of Community and Inclusion, that his talk on outreach and inclusiveness, filling the gaps through the environmental movement, might help answer even some of these questions we've been talking about today about how do you get people interested, right? This is all about community and inclusiveness. If a person doesn't feel like that's their problem, right, or that they're not part of it, or, they just don't see the larger picture of how it fits into their everyday life and health, right, these are the types of things. This is the type of thing, community inclusion, to help people understand a little bit better about how the environment, their carbon footprint, their use of plastics fits into their everyday life, and if not, the future for their children.
And if you are following us on Facebook, after the show, I will post the event link, because there is an Eventbrite link to this event. If you want to go, it is free and open to the public.
We'll have food and refreshments. We're going to have some, because he comes from a Southern background, we're going to have a little healthy Southern food there. Okay.
All right. So this is a part of a 3-part series that you're doing. Yeah. So is the goal of the 3-part series all about inclusion, or it's just all about outreach?
It's about outreach and inclusion. And when I say inclusion, I'm initially thinking about how do we reach the small groups that do this great work, or a small community school that does this great work. They're not as big as, say, the Common Ground that everybody knows around environment, that are doing this work, that live in a community and they pick up plastic, they pick up trash because they want to keep, their neighborhood or their street clean. How do we get them to come and understand, first of all, what environmental sustainability is all about, and that there's money available? $500 may make a local, PTA group. It may help. $1,000, $800 can help you do a very nice project, and then you can go up from there up to $10,000. And so I want to get the message out that you too, if you've got a good idea about something that's been bothering you in the community around any sort of environmental issue, that we might have a small pot of money for you to at least get started, kind of thing. Right. So our second environmental series is, we're going to just showcase some of these grantees that we've been talking about. Okay. So at the Bradley Street Co-op in October, and we haven't quite set the date, but we've got a couple of dates that I'll be able to send you soon. Okay. In October, we're going to showcase some of the grantees, micro grants to the large grants at the Bradley Street Co-op, and just have them talk about what they've done. And people can come down, and if you don't have an idea but you're interested, come and see the showcase grantees for over the last 2 years that we've funded, and maybe you'll get an idea about what you could do in your community, kind of thing, right? So that was one thing, to showcase who we've funded in the past, over the last 2 years, and have people come down and talk to them, all right, about their ideals and some of the projects that they've done and how they've used the grants. Then the last thing will be in December. Our last series of our events will be in December, and we want to take it a step further. So now we've had someone great talk about the environment. We've showcased our grantees. And the last thing we want to do, which I'll be sort of heading up, is to do technical assistance. So if you're a small individual community group out there, you're incorporated or not incorporated, you've never written a grant before, we're going to have a technical assistance that I'll probably help lead, where we'll take you through how to apply for the micro grants, how to apply for a small grant, how to apply for a large grant.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And what is that going to be in November?
That'll be in December.
In December.
Yeah,
okay,
like early
awesome.
December, late November, early December, because then our large and small grants will open up. And hopefully, now that we've done this, giving you some ideas, showcase some of our grantees, and now helped you hands-on sort of go through our process in particular, you should be able to apply.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Absolutely. So we have a little bit less than 10 minutes left to the show. Tell me a little bit about kind of like what's the goal over the next few years for the New Haven Green Fund. Do you have a goal of granting a certain amount of money out, or do you actually track kind of like your environmental impact in the greater New Haven area?
Ooh, I love this question because we actually, as a board, are going through solidifying our next 5-year strategic plan. And one of the things that came out of the strategic plan is what we're doing right now and talking about this outreach. The other thing we're doing is we are looking at how to measure our impact in the community. So we already know about the grantees, right? We have great information about our grantees and their projects and what they've done. If you go to our website, www.greaternewhavengreenfund.org, you can see some of the great projects that we've supported. But we want to be able to measure that success, that impact. Are we missing? Are there gaps? Are we missing, whether it's neighborhoods, communities, certain age groups? We cover a lot, but we want to know if we have gaps that we're missing. And we want to be able to measure. A lot of times when people talk about measuring impact, especially grantees, they talk about, we count the number of people that come to our event, or we gave out so many brochures and things like that. Common Ground School, on the other hand, and some of the larger organizations, they do a very good job at talking about how they're going to measure their impact. We, as a grantee, are learning how to say how we measure our impact by what we do in the community with the money that we give out. And so we're actually right now looking at that and working with an organization, Mr. Farnham, who's very local here in New Haven, to see concrete ways that we can measure our impact. And, I understand about measuring impact. We want to also, at the technical assistance that we'll have in November, December, help grantees, teach grantees. Let's go beyond the counting of the people and how many brochures, but how about photo voice? Take a picture, right? A picture tells 1,000 words. How you would capture your success or measure your impact. The narrative, the story, right? That always is great at helping tell the story about, and we are doing that as an organization also. We're learning how to tell our story better, how to do a narrative around our impact. And so we're actually engaging right now over the course of this year in our strategic plan, solidifying our strategic plan and objectives on just that point. We're helping others do it, and we're looking at how we're doing it ourselves.
When we look at the environmental condition of Greater New Haven in particular, is the organization just focused on kind of like innovative projects or things that specifically address, say, because we're on 95, we have a huge air pollution issue. Do you take that in account when giving grants?
So we like when we have an innovative project, right? We like that, but it could be just, and that is the key. I think sometimes people think, oh, I've got to do something new. For us, there are some problems in some of our neighborhoods that have been around for a long time. Everything from blight to just, where you are, how close you are, to as the increase in asthma that we see here in New Haven, and how air pollution connects to that and things like that. So there are problems, everyday problems that you say, okay, it's old, we don't need to do. Yes, no, we do need to do something about it. My other thing that I'm quite passionate about is what we've talked about, and I said we can talk about a little bit more, is this social entrepreneurship. When we look at social entrepreneurship that's going on around the world globally, people have taken just small problems, everyday problems. There was one woman in India that was featured as I teach in school about women and childcare. Women working in factories, say in India, they didn't have childcare. So if they don't have childcare, then they can't work like they need to make the money that they need to help our family. We in the United States, we understand that, right? We understand that, right? What this woman did, and this was her solution to this problem, she took and put childcare centers either in the companies or right next to them, so that the mothers, when they were on their break, could come and breastfeed their children or whatever they needed to do to make sure to take care of their children and keep their hours and be able to work. Then they were able to feed their families, and then, right. And then the cycle goes on, right?
Right.
Those are the kind of things, like this everyday problem that we see, we might not even think much of. So innovation is nice, but there are still some everyday problems that we need to not only look at, because we've got enough data. We got Data Haven, right? They got enough data. Yes. We know. How many times more do we need to tell you the numbers about the same problems that we have? Yeah. We want to do something. And some small change. It starts with small change. Some small change can make a difference. And that might be the mother and father on the corner living in a neighborhood that says, we want to do this.
I am excited about this. I actually have to say, I had never actually heard of the New Haven Green Fund before you approached me. Good. So one outreach for you. And it's very, I have also too, it's also very rare that organization come on and just say, come take our money. Come on, come get money from us. So, so kudos for that. So I have this event on my calendar. I'm going to really make every effort I can to come that day. I'm really looking forward to it. I think that it's it's very it's a huge interest of mine of how do we increase the inclusiveness of environmental issues. And I'm very looking forward to meeting Dr. Easley. I'm going to try to pin him down and get him on my show too.
Yes. And
so Dr. Easley, if you are watching,
we in New Haven, Greater New Haven, especially people of color, if you're out there listening, please let us give him a warm welcome. Yeah. One of the problems we tend to have, whether it's Yale, Southern, or whatever, is that we tend to lose sometimes our people of color that are very capable experts, because New England, we just are not as warm as maybe the South kind of thing. Yeah. And so we want to give him a warm welcome. Yeah. And I know that he's been welcomed in other ways, coming to the city, but we as the community, as an environmental agency and organization, want to be able to give him a warm welcome and hear what he has to say. And we're so excited about this event on the 21st.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
And having us be a voice for the environmental movement that the Green Fund is trying to push.
Wonderful.
I want to thank everybody for listening. You've been listening to Mornings with Mubarakah on WNHHLP 103.5 FM. And I remind you today, as I do every week, go about your week and be a voice and not an echo.